out in the garden today, and I'm going to read to you from the second book in the Secret Adventures of Rollo series. This is the Chilvester Passage, and this is where Rollo goes up to London and finds a very special little girl called Hope. The church stood on a road on the edge of a square. Around it, a red bus went past with only one person on board. Then a black taxi cab with its orange light showing it was available for hire. Then another red bus. These were clues, I thought. I worked out that I was probably in London, but what year had I landed in? Closer to read the black letters on its white rectangular on Cannon Street. I wondered again why I'd been brought to London. Something fluttering caught my eye, and I saw a crumpled up newspaper blowing across the square, being chased by a street cleaner in the quiet. I chased it round a couple of fountains, pounced on it and held it down with my front paws so that the cleaner, plugged into his music via headphones, could retrieve it and scoop it into the rubbish cart. This just gave me enough, so I hadn't time travelled then. I was still in the present. The thought crossed my mind that this probably meant I wouldn't be able to communicate with anyone. Not that the street cleaner looked like he wanted to start a conversation with his headphones acting as a communication barrier. He patted me and threw me a bit of burger from a distance. Before, I'm not proud when it comes to food, you know me, I'll eat anything. So I gobbled it up eagerly. Here I was then in central London, in the middle of the night, without a clue as to where I should go. An important man on a very tall column looked down at me as I pondered my dilemma. He was guarded by 4 lions on each corner. No wonder he looked so impressive. I went back to the church and trotted up St Martin's Lane, and then took a lottery of right turns and left turns, and after about 20 minutes saw a pedestrian sign to a hospital. I followed the direction it was pointing and eventually found myself outside a modern building, and I walked under the canopy, drawn to an entrance painted in rainbow colours, lit up by bright lights from within despite the lateness of the hour. This was a children's hospital. It seemed quite welcoming. I felt compelled to go in. Being small, I easily avoided detection from the front desk. The nighttime receptionist was so engrossed in something on her smartphone, I trotted right past the desk well below eye level. Thinking I wouldn't be able to reach the buttons in the lift and not too sure where I was heading, I thought I would take the stairs. There was no one in the stairwell, being past visiting time, and all the parents and carers had gone home to rest. Only the night staff were moving silently within, quietly administering their care. I was out of breath when I reached the 4th floor, so I thought I'd have a look round there. The heavy door from the stairwell pushed open with a swoosh, which momentarily disturbed the silence within. I held my breath. No one came. The silence was only punctuated by the occasional bleep of a machine. Now, as you know, I don't like high-pitched bleeping noises. They make me bark, but I knew that these machines were doing an important job of saving sick children, so I took the manly decision to try to keep my ears closed to the sound and try to blot it out. Definitely no barking. The first thing I saw in a side ward were brightly coloured curtains decorated with cute puppies, pulled tightly around a bed. Further investigation, I shoved my head through the join in the curtains, showed that the occupant of the bed was a pretty little girl fast asleep with her arm propped around a teddy. She didn't look as if she should be in hospital at all. Her hair curled softly around her face and sprawled out like a spider across the pillow. It was a little damp where it touched her forehead. Her eyes were closed, but I bet underneath the lids they were sky blue. Then I noticed the tubes and wires attached to this little pocket. The sleep was perhaps not so peaceful, but necessary for healing. I could hear someone coming and ducked underneath her bed, where I was soon joined by the discarded teddy, who landed face down with a soft plop beside me on the recently mopped, disinfectant-smelling tiled floor. I cocked up an ear and listened. 2 night sisters were having a murmured conversation in low tones on the other side of the curtains about a little girl called Hope, who had been in hospital for 2 weeks following an accident, and the doctors were still puzzled as to why she was in a coma and trying to think of ways her family could possibly encourage her to regain consciousness. My instincts told me that the little body had shut down as part of the healing process, and I'm sure the medical staff knew that. One of the sisters bent down, and I saw a hand coming towards me under the bed. I pushed the discarded bear out with my front paw. Phew, that was close. The hand picked up the bear and tucked it back into the bed covers next to the sleeping child. I listened to their muffled, retreating footsteps as they moved along the corridor in their sensible shoes, tucking in strayed teddies and smoothing down beds on their rounds. When all was quiet once more in the ward and the sisters had departed, I hopped up into Hope's bed, nudged the bear back onto the floor with a muttered apology, and snuggled into the little girl's side, just the same as I did in the mornings with the floppy-haired boy when the stairgate was open. I was very careful not to disturb the wires and tubes. Hope stirred a little, and her breathing returned to its regular pattern. I snuggled in closer, hoping my live little furry body would somehow comfort her. The bear couldn't. For hours, Hope and I, with me keeping watch, the steady rhythmic bleeping of her machines monitoring every breath. As the sun crept round the blackout blind, I roused. The ward was starting to stir, and soon there would be a flurry of hospital activity with the change of the night shift and the admittance of visitors after the rounds of medical staff. I knew, much as I didn't want to leave this little girl's side, I would have to find my way back home and into my basket pretty sharpish before the smiley lady awoke and I was missed. I jumped down off the bed and as an afterthought picked up the poor bear and tucked it back into the warm spot I'd just vacated next to Hope. The London streets were coming to life and I knew I had to move quickly. I found my way down tree-lined avenues and busy roads with names which flashed past in a blur, names like Holborn, Bloomsbury Way, Monmouth Street, and at last the familiar St Martin's Lane. And there I saw the important man with his back to me, the lions still sitting alert, and the pigeons just arriving for their daily beggings. I scampered round the railings to the Talbot Cafe sign and wondered what I had to do to open the Chilvester Passage from the London end. I sniffed around the bottom of the sign and nudged it upwards with my nose, and miraculously it opened, just enough to squeeze my head and then my shoulders through the gap. I edged the rest of my body through and dropped into the darkness of the passage on the other side. I heard the board bang down into place behind me and looked around for my tiny lamp bearer. I needn't have worried, she was there waiting for me. "Well, Paddy Paws, you're later than I expected. Did you work out what you had to do?" she asked as she hurried me along the dark passage. "I found Hope, who looked like she needed some companionship," I replied wearily and longed for my basket. I left Julia standing in the tunnel behind the dog mural and once more skittered across the tiled floor to the west door of the church. It was still dark outside. I glanced up at the church clock and it said it was just before 7. Plenty of time to get home and into my basket before anyone else in the house stirred. I was thankful for long winter nights and snuggled down in my bed, worrying about the little girl. My next opportunity to visit Hope came sooner than expected. And we're going to leave it there for today, and I will return tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock with another story. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.